It finally happened, ladies and gentlemen. We finally got Achilles in Smite, or we'll have him in Smite by next week. Of course, console players, you know, the standard jazz of having to wait extra longer. I'm not sure how long is that, like 2 weeks or something? Console players get Achilles, but he's here now, and that means we're going to be going over his lore, facts about him, stories, and all of that good stuff. And really, we'll be analyzing his stories mostly here. So, his parents were Thetis and a king. Thetis was a sea nymph and one of the 50 daughters of the ancient sea god Nereus. Chiron advised the king of Theta, Peleus, to keep a firm grip of the water nymph. Thetis didn't exactly like that idea, so first and foremost she turned herself into fire. And I'm not sure if you've ever touched fire, but it's a fairly painful experience. I can't really say so myself, but it looks pretty painful. Then she turned herself into water, and again, I don't know if you've ever tried to properly grab water, but most of it does try to escape your hand, so not exactly the most possible thing in the world, but apparently he kept his grip. Then lastly, she turned herself into a wild animal, and specifically a dangerous animal. I'm not sure exactly what kind of animal, but assuming that most people would be afraid of lions, tigers, big cats, she probably turned into some sort of big cat. And for some reason, he kept his grip through all of that, but it was when she turned back into a nymph that he lost his grip. Nevertheless, the two decided to get married. Now, Thetis was a particularly beautiful nymph, and I know this for a fact because both Poseidon and Zeus were interested in her, and I think you can know where this story is going. It's actually not going that way. Poseidon and Zeus were interested in Thetis, yes, but Prometheus informed them that the father of this particular water nymph would be superseded by their son. And suffice it to say, Zeus and Poseidon both lost interest pretty quickly. So I suppose a lot of women from Greek mythology could have saved themselves some trouble if they'd literally just said something along those lines to Zeus, but oh well. Their wedding was quite a prestigious event, and the gods from all over Mount Olympus attended the ceremony. Of course, we all know who wasn't invited, so go ahead and check out the Discordia lore video. I'll link that in a card somewhere after you watch this. And also, I've made a fan theory about sort of the Trojan War, so go ahead and check those out once you're done here. So thanks to this marriage, Achilles was born, and he was born as a demigod. Rather, he wasn't quite a normal human, and he wasn't exactly a god either. He would age and all of that stuff, but he had supernatural strength. And he was incredibly beautiful as well for a man. Now we come on to the questionable child abuse section. You see, Thetis wanted Achilles to be more of an immortal, or more like an immortal. And so there's two approaches that he takes in two different myths. So, in the first myth that I'll tell you about, she covers Achilles from head to toe in ambrosia, and then set him on fire. Now, he's covered in ambrosia, so he's for the most part fine, I suppose. His lips are burning, and his ankles seem like they're burning as well, but he's fine. His pretty face hasn't been damaged yet, and his father sees this and rescues him from the flames, because he wasn't exactly a fan of having a very crispy son. So, Achilles is saved from that minor episode of terrible parenting, and the long and short of it is Thetis is frustrated at the fact that Achilles won't be covered in this ambrosia and made into more of an immortal being, and she refuses to raise Achilles. So Achilles is left in the care of his father, and his father has him raised by Chiron. That seems to be a theme of a lot of these Greek characters. They're just raised by Chiron, and Chiron is just this amazing chap who raises people. Shame he's not really all that present in Smite right now as far as the meta is concerned, but what can you do? Horseman will have his time in the sun eventually. So Achilles is raised in this forest by Chiron, and in this forest he has to survive by eating lion waste, bear marrow, and wild animals. Raw, just like that, because he could do that apparently. Chiron also had his methods of helping Achilles resist quote-unquote evil passions, and of course pain. Now, by evil passions, I'm assuming that means, feelings of love and lust and all of that type of thing. Anything that a soldier probably doesn't need. But going back to the other way in which Achilles is made immortal, Thetis grabs Achilles and dips his entire body into the River Styx in the underworld, Hades. Now, because she was holding onto his heels, his ankles, those parts of him were not made immortal. But the rest of his body essentially was. So you couldn't kill Achilles, for instance, by beheading him, which was a shame for certain people, because Achilles was the bane of many, many men. But we'll get onto that in just a sec. Now, it should also be mentioned that during his time with Chiron, some of the rusted metal from his spear graced the earth, and those droplets of metal eventually bloomed into a flower called Achillea. So apparently that's the lore behind the Achillea flower. Apparently it's an actual flower in the world, so that's a thing. Hold on to that thought of rusting spear parts. You see, Telephus, a son of Hercules, controlled Mysia, which was attacked by 50 Myrmidon ships, led by Achilles. Achilles' father had control over the Myrmidons. That was sort of his army, and Achilles led them into battle during the Trojan War. Now, his armies got into a fight with the armies of Telephus, and Achilles actually ends up wounding Telephus. One thing leads to another. Telephus speaks to an oracle that tells him that he that wounded shall heal. So essentially, Telephus has to return to Achilles, and Achilles lets the sort of rustlets from his spear fall onto the wounds of Telephus, and Telephus is healed. Now in return, not only is the conflict ended, but Telephus guides Achilles towards Troy. It was also said that the city of Troy could not be taken without the aid of Achilles. And thanks to this, Thetis was heavily concerned. She had Vulcan, or Hephaestus if you will, craft Achilles very nice protective armor and weaponry. Armory of the gods, if you will. She had Achilles disguise himself as a woman or a young girl so that he wouldn't be called into battle. However, Odysseus comes to Peleus' city and essentially recruits Achilles and his Myrmidons to the Greek side of the conflict. And at first, Achilles wasn't going to leave and fight off in this Trojan War, but eventually Odysseus lays before him a shield and a spear. And as sort of a warrior's code honor sort of deal, Achilles joins the fight after that, sort of setting his pride on the line. He cares a lot about his warrior's pride. Now, growing up, Achilles was tutored by a phoenix, so I'm expecting some interesting lines when he kills an enemy phoenix in Smite. Also, his childhood friend Patroclus accompanied him to the war with his Myrmidons, and Achilles killed a lot of men. He slayed so many people that he gained so much renown, and he was considered a war hero. But Achilles lost someone during the war that was essentially his best friend. I found a post on ancientorigins.net that argues the case that Patroclus, Achilles' best friend, might have been just a touch more than just a best friend. See, it goes on to explain that in ancient Greek society, older men of the society may have had certain special relations with younger men, and it was sort of like a teacher-student relationship that also got a bit intimate, shall we say. And because of this, even though at the time homosexuality was frowned upon by the Greeks, this was an understanding and this did happen. And because of that, there's a possibility, because of the vagueness of how the Iliad is written, you can interpret it in such a way that Achilles might have actually been a lover of Patroclus. I don't like to look at it like that. I like to see it as Patroclus and Achilles had a sort of brotherly, we're comrades in arms sort of strong relationship rather than a more into each other's business all the time, lovey-dovey, coupley relationship. As I said, I'll leave a link to this little post in the description, so you can go ahead and check that out for yourselves, and then come back and tell me if you think it's more of a lovey-dovey relationship, or straight up, do you think, like me, it's a brotherly sort of warband bond? But either way, you cannot deny that Achilles loved Patroclus deeply, as if nothing else than a brotherly bond at least. And at some point during the Trojan War, Achilles doesn't want to fight. And so Patroclus takes Achilles' armor, without Achilles knowing, and commands the Myrmidons, because the Myrmidons refuse to attack without Achilles leading them. So Patroclus pretends to be a Myrmidon and sets sail into battle, and he's slain by Hector. And Hector immediately knows that something's wrong because Achilles isn't supposed to be susceptible to wounds. He's supposed to be near invincible, and Hector takes him down easier than he would have thought. So he takes off the helmet, realizes, oh no, I've killed someone that's not Achilles. This could be an issue. And sure enough, Achilles is not too pleased about the fact that his good friend, potential lover, and all of that might be dead. In fact, no, not might be dead. Was dead. Very dead. I'm not sure precisely how he's slain, but spear to the neck, a spear to the gut, a sword wound on any vital area. He's not walking out of that. Achilles was distraught for a bit, then he was determined to slay Hector. And he does slay Hector in sort of a 1v1 deal. And the thing about this, in Greek mythology, several different sort of places within the afterlife you can end up. You can end up in a place where heroes essentially blossom. Like if you've done great deeds as a warrior, or just great deeds generally. Beautiful place. I have the text of that on the screen. But the way in which Achilles sort of deals with Hector's body, he deliberately tries to diminish his experience in the afterlife. He attaches Hector to his chariot and rides him across, far away from Hector's home city, so he can't be buried properly. And burial's a very important way of getting into the part of the afterlife that you might want to end up in Greek mythology. Remember, the one way that you can leave the Greek underworld is that you can exit it through the form of a ghost sort of spirit or something, to demand that you be given a proper burial. So Achilles doing this is fairly ballsy, a douche move, and essentially Achilles is a bit of a selfish something. Hector, very much sad face. Anyways, Hector's body is eventually returned and buried properly, but Achilles defaces it a bit. Eventually, though, Achilles is slain and gets his famous nickname. You see, Paris, the brother of Hector, fires an arrow, and this arrow is guided by Apollo straight into Achilles' heel. In some variations of the myth, just dies because of the fact that the arrow hit a vital vein or artery within Achilles' heel, and he dies by bleeding out. In other versions, it was a poisoned arrow, and he dies from the poison. But either way, that's where the phrase Achilles' heel comes from. Also, it's the origin of another medical phrase called the Achilles tendon. Now, if you lose your Achilles tendon or something happens to your Achilles tendon, depending on the damage, you're not necessarily fit for the grave. You might actually survive. You might need to go to sort of rehab sort of training for, the movement in your foot, and it will be working. I'm not sure if it would be working just as good as new. There might be some differences in feeling and stuff. I'm not a doctor, but I'm assuming it wouldn't be 100% the same. But it would be functional enough for you to continue living your life unless you're some sort of, acrobat or soldier or whatever super high-intensive movement work you might be into. I don't know, an artist, for example, you're probably fine unless you paint with your feet. But yes. So the term Achilles' heel means a point of vulnerability or weakness, which is kind of ironic considering the fact that Achilles, a bit of an unstoppable force, except for the fact that if you hit him in the heels, then, well, it's sad times for Achilles. Partially got the super awesomeness of a god, so there's that, and we're finally getting him in Smite. Do you know how many videos there have been of people asking for Achilles, talking about Achilles, expecting Achilles in Smite? This is a real nod to the community here for this pick. So, nice job for that, Hi-Res. As far as Achilles and his design in Smite, and his kit, well, Achilles said he was supposed to be a beautiful man. He definitely looks fairly pretty enough to fit that description in Smite. And of course, because of the whole immortality thing that stops just before his heels, meaning that he wouldn't have to wear armor for his chest necessarily, his arms, his neck, the top part of his legs, so his thighs, the parts in sort of the armor from that time that would have been open, he'd have covered by the fact that, you know, the River Styx gave him some immortality, or the ambrosia sort of helped him out with that. His whole passive and some more of his abilities do make sense. The way he fights, he would of course have been a more agile fighter, so his free is very law-abiding. The shield bash, well, you've got to do something cool with a shield, right? And why not have a shield bash? As for the whole execution ult, yeah, he killed, as I said, several people during the story, so it makes sense that he gets an execution ult that he can use again and again, and it also incorporates the whole Achilles heal with the ult, so the more you use the ult, the more damage you're going to take, or the more susceptible to damage you're going to be. So that's nice. I didn't check whether Achilles is a warrior or an assassin. Makes most sense for him to be a warrior, though his kit does seem very assassin-y, so I'm assuming he's going to be, like, more Erlang Shen, in sort of he's going to sway closer to being an assassin than a warrior, but we'll see how it turns out. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the video on Achilles. I've actually been talking for quite a while, haven't I? Golden. Well, I hope that you did enjoy or learn something new. As I said, if you want to continue a bit more of a discussion on the Trojan War, go ahead and check out the videos I've made on Discordia, because that expands upon this topic a little more. Now, I'm not sure if I have a second video ready for today. I was hoping to get another video out, but I'll be honest this week, it's not that university work has been piling on. That's the reason why I haven't uploaded many videos this week. I just haven't been feeling it this week. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not big on forcing myself to upload, so I'll try to get myself back into things for next week, but yeah, I just really wasn't feeling it this week. I do apologize for that, but I'm getting back into things, and hopefully I can get some more uploads out. But until the next video, have a very good day. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel and all that good jazz, or if you just enjoyed the video. And until the next video, have a good day. I have been Prime. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.